Hello and welcome to the third episode of the Drishtys Art and Culture series for Prelims 2021. In this episode, we'll be discussing certain important communities, tribes which have been in news and some updates from northeastern part of India for art and culture segment. First important news is related to Mia community. This term is often used pejoratively, but the controversy erupted as there was a museum proposed for Mia community's culture, but it got into controversy because the proposal was to include Mia Museum in the Shankar Kalakshetra complex. Now, what's the controversy here? We'll see further. Now, Mia community resides in a special geographical entity of Assam called Char Chapuri. Char is the floating island on the Brahmaputra river. Chapuri is the coastal area or the river bank, and these areas keep interchanging. Here it is where Mia community primarily resides in Assam. Now, Mia community, it is said that they are descendants of Muslim migrants from Bengal to Assam, but it is not very recent. It's located quite back in history, this event, and this event began when after British conquered Assam in 1826, and thereafter this migration began and continued well into the independence of India until 1971 Mukti Sangram, which gave birth to Bangladesh. So, there is a long history of migration, and that is why they have a quite different culture from Assam. There are certain assimilative characteristics as well, but still they have a distinct culture. And for example, that examples of that distinctive culture, they have a martial art tradition called Lathi Badi, then they have a river song called Bhatiyali, Magan Geet is their crop song or harvest song, and Noi Khelor is the song on the boat. So, they have a distinct culture of their own, and this culture was supposed to be archived or supposed to be highlighted in that museum. Now, that controversy came up because the area Shankar Dev Kalakshetra is named after Vaishnav saint Srimant Shankar Dev, and Shankar Dev, 15th-16th century medieval bhakti poet, he is very important to Assamese identity. Now, he, and not only religious identity, but he also gave a distinct touch to Assamese art and culture. He began the Neo-Vaishnavite movement. We know Bhakti tradition had Sagun and Nirgun, and then Sagun had different kinds of movements within it. So, he was a proponent of Neo-Vaishnavite movement, and he established Satriya dance. I am highlighting it because UPSC has already asked a question on it. Satriya dance derives its nomenclature from Satras, which were the monasteries established by Shankar Dev. And this particular dance is actually a combination of theatrical performance, dance, music, and similar stuff. Now, he is also related, Shankar Dev is also related to theatre forms called Ankiya Nat and Bhavna. His all creative expressions had inclusion of mythology. The musical composition which evolved in this tradition of Shankar is called Borgeet. That is also important part of Assamese identity, and obviously Satriya dance. In Satriya dance, the male participant is called Pak and the female participant is called Prakrit Pak. We are highlighting this because once UPSC has already asked a question on it. Now, in 2000, why it is so important? Because in 2000 it was included as a classical dance by Sangeet Akademi. Now, Sangeet Akademi has given this status to 8 classical dances. Satriya dance is one of them. The important lead artists of the present era are Ramkrishna Talukdar and Krishnakshi Kashyap. Now, Kalakshetra Society was formed in 1998. This society, which is going to form the museum, has also got a history. It was formed in 1998 as per the sections of Assam Accord. Actually, Assam went through a violent history, and finally in 1985, between Assam government, central government, and the people of Assam movement, an accord was signed, and this body was established as a part of that accord. That whole accord was aimed at preserving the culture of Assamese people. So that is all about Srimanta Shankar Dev. Kalakshetra Academy and Mia community. Moving on further, Siddhi community was in news. Why? Because the first time in the history of India, one of the representative of Siddhis, Santaram Budna Siddhi, got nominated to Legislative Council of Karnataka. Now, Siddhis were actually from Africa, countries of Africa like Ethiopia, Abyssinia, and from that tribal community via with the help of Arabs, or not with the help of Arabs actually, as slaves in the ancient slave trade, they came to India and are found presently in India and Pakistan, various states of India like Karnataka, Gujarat and Maharashtra. In Karnataka, they are found in Uttar Kannada district. They are included as PVTGs. We discussed PVTGs in the last episode. If you are still confused, you should go back to that episode. So now they are included among PVTGs. They were brought as African soldiers and slaves, and later on they also became part of the European slave trade. They were brought to India by Portuguese and British as well, and pejoratively they have been called as Habshi and Negro. These terms should be avoided as much as possible, basically completely avoided. This is one of the favorite images I could find. This shows Jahangir taking an aim at Malik Ambar. Now, Malik Ambar was a Siddhi, and he was such, and this painting depicts mere fantasy of Jahangir. He was so much mad at him that he got this painting commissioned, imagination of a monarch. So, moving on further, Yanomami tribe. It was in news because a person, he issued a video to Indian government making an emotional appeal to people of India and to government of India to not purchase gold from their land, because he said it is the blood gold. Now, what is blood gold? We are aware of the idea of blood diamond. It is also related to Kimberley process. Kimberley process seeks to avoid trade in blood diamonds. So, basically diamond sourced from such areas which are involved in ethnic conflicts, and that ethnic conflict is basically due to source these resources. So, similarly, the person from the tribe claimed that this gold that is being sourced from there is blood gold, and he made an appeal. So, that is why this tribe was in news. So, let us know something about this tribe. Yanomami tribe, they live in the Amazon rainforest of northern Brazil. Basically, they live on the border of Venezuela and Brazil, and this is the largest tribe living in the remote areas of South America. We need to know certain details, not very important. Most important is that this tribe is found in Africa on the border of Brazil and Venezuela, and their homes are called Llanos or Chabonos, and they follow shifting cultivation as is the norm in most of the tribal population, and they have certain kind of moral economy, that is the hunters, the one who will hunt the prey won't eat the meat, and they consider all the people as equal. So, overall their organizations don't have a headman like kind of thing. Their language is Ziriana or Yanomaman, and they are also known as South American Indian. Why they are called Indian? That has got a different history of that marauder Columbus, who thought he has discovered India, but he reached actually South America, he reached actually North America and called the local people Indians. So, these are called as South American Indians. Now, Devi Cope Nava of Brazil was recently awarded a Right Livelihood Award for 2019. This award, established by German-Swedish philanthropist Jacob von Uexküll, is also known as Alternative Nobel Prize. There are certain reasons, because one of them is it is given just days before the actual Nobel Prizes, and it is also given in Sweden. So, next tribe in news is Katkari tribe. Why they are called Katkari? Because they deal basically in the business of katha, producing katha. Why they are in news presently is because a group of Katkari tribal youth has come together under an initiative led by TriFed under Pradhan Mantri Wan Dhan Yojana to make Giloy. Now, Giloy was in news because during the corona epidemic, it was seen as helpful in improving immunity and bringing down fever. So under this initiative, they have done a praiseworthy job, and that is why they were in news. The main location is in Maharashtra and Gujarat, and remember, they are also one among the PVTGs, one among the 75 PVTGs of India. Giloy, as we just mentioned, is an important Ayurvedic herb, and its scientific name is Tinospora cordifolia, and it is used as a medicine for fever and to improve immunity. Moving on further, Mankedia tribe. Mankedia tribe was in news because Simlipal Tiger Reserve this year had a fire, and that posed danger to the livelihood of Mankedia and Khadia tribe. Now, this is also both of these tribes actually are two among the most vulnerable tribal groups, PVTGs, of Odisha. And Mankedia tribes, they gather siali fiber and wild honey from this forest of Simlipal, and both of these things are seasonal, but this fire at the peak of that season harmed their livelihood. We should know something about Mankedia further. So they are a nomadic tribal group found in Odisha. They are classified as PVTGs, and it is actually a part of Birhor tribe of Chota Nagpur region. This word Mankedia actually comes from one of their traditional roles they recently acquired, they were used to catch monkeys, and they claim to have certain expertise in this. Moving on further, Simlipal National Park. This is a national park, elephant sanctuary and tiger reserve as well, and it is there in Mayurbhanj district. The name Simlipal itself comes from semal or red cotton, which is found in this park. Moving on further, Singapore hawker culture was in news. Why it was in news? Because it was included in the representative list of intangible cultural heritage of humanity. Now, we have gone through certain UNESCO's programs. This is one among the important programs, which is Intangible Cultural Heritage of Humanity, again by UNESCO. Now, Singapore's hawker culture has been recognized. Now, hawker is a vibrant culture founded in 1970s as an effort to clean up the island of Singapore. Now, remember, 1970s was the time when Singapore was dealing with a kind of crisis. It had just left Malaysia and was making its identity as a new nation, and at that time hawker culture emerged, and it was developed by street food makers, and they created a community of diners and get-togethers. Now, its purpose was to provide a social order which served or which celebrated cheap and no-frills dishes for local people. Now, this idea of protecting intangible cultural heritage by UNESCO, it emerged or was established actually in 2008, and this prestigious list is made up of certain international what you would call them, certain international pieces of culture that is seen as worthy of being celebrated as well as protected. India also contributed 13 such intangible cultural heritage items to this list. Most recently, Kumbh Mela was included in 2017. But to begin with, 3 items in 2008, Vedic chanting, Ram Leela, the traditional performance, and Kutiyattam, which is basically a Sanskrit theatre, they were included in 2008. It was followed by Rammam, which is a ritual theatre of Garhwal Himalayas, then Mutiyettu, which is theatre and dance form of Kerala. Now, Kalbelia, folk songs of Rajasthan, was included in 2010, Chau dance in 2010, Buddhist chanting of Ladakh in 2012, Sankirtana from Manipur in 2013, Thateras, their art of traditional brass and copper craft, was included in 2014, and Yoga Navroz in 2016. So 13 items from this from India have been included there, and UPSC has asked questions many a times in past few years based on these topics. So just have a look or take a screenshot. This is important. Moving on to the next topic, geotourism sites in the Northeast. Now, Geological Survey of India has identified some geological sites in Northeast to promote geotourism in the northeast, which is aimed at their specific geological formations, natural formations. A site list of 12 sites have been produced, and first among them is Mamlu Cave. Mamlu Cave, as you can see there, it was in news because on the basis of a study conducted at this cave, Meghalayan age, a new age was sort of discovered. Now, before going to what is Meghalayan age, we should know that the age of Earth is calculated in eons. Then eons are further divided into era, era into period, period into epoch. Now, we are living in Holocene epoch, and in this Holocene epoch, the most recent is Meghalayan age. So, Meghalayan age is the last 4200 years ended in 1950. So, that is the Meghalayan age, and according to scientists, certain biggest drought events took place which almost ended the civilization in Egypt, Mesopotamia and Indus Valley civilization, which were the most ancient and classic civilizations in the ancient world. Now, Meghalayan's Mobley or God's Rock is also included in this list. This list is present in the Vaharashi river valley and has an angle of 450 degree, and that is why it's considered a wonder in itself, and it is also in this list. Now, this list belongs to Khasi group of Cretaceous era. We just discussed the epoch era, so this belongs to an ancient geological age. Now, Therighat from Meghalaya also got a place in this list, and this is also related to an ancient geological period. Further, from Assam, Majuli and Umananda islands were included in this list. Majuli Island, we know, is one of the largest riverine islands in the world, and the Satariya dance, which we just discussed, is related to this island. So, this association should be remembered. Now, this list also included Chabi Mura site, which is located at Agartala in Tripura. Now, on the site, certain deities are carved on the rock structure, and Kartikeya, Shiva, Vishnu, Durga, the figures have been found at that place. Further, Unakoti rock cut site of Tripura, another site from Tripura, is also included in this list. It was built in 7th to 9th century, and it is known for Shaivism pilgrimage. Shaivite, it is a Shaivite site. Moving on further, Stromatolite Park of Sikkim has also found a place among these 12 places. Here we find algal action on these rocks, and it also provides evidence of the early life in the Sikkim Himalaya region. Moving on further, in addition to those sites, certain more sites are included in this list. Another site is from Arunachal Pradesh, Sangesar So water body, Manipur lakes, Loktak Lake. Loktak Lake, we know UPSC has asked multiple times about Loktak Lake, Phumdis, which have been found floating on this lake, and Kaibul Lemjao National Park, which is located on one of those Phumdis. Now, Mizoram has Reekthang Hill, Nagaland's Naga Hill of Ophiolite, that is also a part of this list. Last but not the least, GSI, it was formed in 1851, basically to survey the coal, and at present too it comes under the Ministry of Mines of Government of India. You can look at the images of Loktak Lake and Reekthang Hill. Moving on further, there is another project of UNESCO, and this is special because India hasn't been able to send any one of its sites successfully as a part of this list. This thing is UNESCO's Global Geoparks. Now, INTEC, which is a private not-for-profit body, is trying to get recognized certain locations from India. Which are those locations? That is Vishakhapatnam's Eramatti Dibbalu and ancient Bora caves and sites made of volcanic ash, and we'll discuss few special things about all of these sites further. Now, Eramatti Dibbalu, literally red dunes of coastal sand. They are located between Vishakhapatnam and Bhimmunipatnam. They are sand dunes, and they have formed naturally over 12,000 years due to interaction between the coast and the sea, and they were declared as National Geo-Heritage Site in 2014. You don't have to remember this, you have to remember that where is the site located, and also that it has been sent for this recognition, and it hasn't yet gained this recognition. Moving on further, in India, this red sand dunes, they are found at 2 places in Tamil Nadu and one in Andhra Pradesh. And in Andhra Pradesh, we just read about Era Mati Dibalu. In Tamil Nadu, it is Teri Sands. Now, erosion is happening there, and that is why also INTEC has sent this site for recognition. Also remember, these kind of sites are found only at 2 places in South Asia. In India, we just mentioned Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh, and next in Sri Lanka. Moving on further, another site is the volcanic ash site. It is located at Arak in Andhra Pradesh, and according to Geological Survey of India, a volcanic eruption took place 73,000 years back in Indonesia, and these depositions are part of that eruption. So this site has also been sent. Then comes Bora Caves, the famous Bora Caves, discovered in 1807 by geologist William King George of Geological Survey of India. It has stalactite and stalagmite structures. In geography, we know and we remember the trick. Stalactite, C, means ceiling. So karst structures or limestone structures, limestone depositions hanging from ceilings are stalactites, and rising from grounds are stalagmites. So these structures are found in these caves. And now, why these caves were formed? We just mentioned these are karst structures. So Gosthani River, basically when river works upon certain limestone structures, these structures are formed. So here Gosthani River, you can remember the name, that has played a major contribution in the formation of these caves. Moving on further, we just mentioned karst limestone structures are there, and these caves are considered to be deepest caves in India. So that was all for Bora Caves. Moving on further, the last site here is just near Thotlakonda Buddhist Stupa in Andhra Pradesh, and that site is in Eastern Ghats, and these are rock arches that have naturally formed. So these rock arches on Mangam Maripeta beach have also been included in this list being sent by INTEC. So that was all for today's episode. We'll come back in another episode with a new list of important news. Till then, keep studying. All the best.